But the biggest thing by far, and it's something that I don't think anyone talks about, is that it makes your guitar feel kind of clunky. Do you own a guitar that's just not that great to play? Like, no matter how much tweaking you do to get it right, or you might even take it into a guitar tech to get set up and it just never comes up quite right. Like, it's just never right. I've got a couple of things to share with you today based on my experience. Doing this sort of thing has been my job for quite a few years now, and I've been lucky enough to work with some really incredible artists, and this sort of thing comes up actually quite a lot of the time. So I thought it would be really helpful if you're having these problems for me to be able to share this information with you so you can actually get your guitars playing exactly how you want them to play. Pretty much any guitar can be made to play like any top boutique brand, but there are a few foundation things that need to be done first that sort of prepare your guitar for a really great setup. You can tell when you're playing a guitar that's set up really well, because regardless of how it sounds, it's just so playable and addictive to play, and it's one of those guitars that you just can't put down. So what are these things? Well, before I just blurt it out, they're things that you've definitely heard of before, but I find that a lot of musicians just have the wrong idea of the function of these things. So that's what I'm going to get into today. First up, fret leveling and crowning. So when someone brings a guitar in and I might suggest it needs a fret level and crown, I get sort of one of three responses. So the first is, what is a fret level and crown? The second is, my guitar actually hasn't got a lot of fret wear, so I don't think it really needs one to remove the fret wear. And the third one is, my guitar is brand new. It shouldn't need any fretwork because it's a brand new guitar. And also, if you like this sort of content, please hit that subscribe button and smash me a like as well. I've also got a new site open at fourthwall.com. There is a link in the description. It's where you can join. It's free to join, and there's going to be additional posts and information over there. There's also going to be a membership tiered system. I'm just getting it together now, but check that out. Links in the description. A fret level and crown levels the fretwork to obtain the best possible setup and the lowest possible action. Without it, you're going to get little high and low spots in your fretwork, and this is going to cause buzzing, and it's also going to cause dead spots all over the neck. So to do a fret level and crown, what I do is I remove the neck if I can, I tape it all up, I make sure the neck is dead straight. I've got special straight edges for that. And then you start to grind the fret tops down with a special leveling beam. And then after this is done, you've got to crown those frets. So they're going to be flat topped. So you're going to have to get them nice and round again. After that step, next is just getting out all those file marks out of the frets and making them ultra super smooth. I also have a couple of wheels that I use from Stu Mac that do a great job of making the frets super smooth and really nice to bend on. So that's kind of the last step I do. While fret leveling does remove fret wear, it's all about having level fretwork, because ultimately your setup is really at the mercy of the fret. So if your fretwork is uneven, you can only actually go so far with your setup after that. You're going to have to compensate for high and low frets, so you can never get like a perfect setup. If you like a medium to high action, you might find that fret leveling is not actually going to be a big deal for you, but I do find a lot of my customers prefer the feel of their guitar after a fret level, even if we set up with a medium or high action. Now, unfortunately, many new guitars don't get fret leveled. This just keeps the price competitive. It's a longer process, so it knocks quite a bit of time off the build. And also you need a skilled person to do this, so you don't need that person in the factory anymore. You can just put the frets in and get the guitars out. So it just speeds up the manufacturing process. But I am surprised how many guitars actually need fret leveling that are brand new. Second, we've got cutting the nut properly, and this is probably the most underrated step of all time when it comes to guitar setups. So what's involved with cutting a nut? Well, I use special files to cut the nut slots so they're the right size and depth, usually a little higher than that first fret. So often I see guitars coming in that are really high at the nut, and this causes tuning problems for one. So down in those first few frets, it's always going to be a little bit sharp. But the biggest thing by far, and it's something that I don't think anyone talks about, is that it makes your guitar feel kind of clunky or awkward to play when the string height at the nut is high. And this is because of the action on the nut side of where you're fretting. No one actually thinks about this, and this is what really affects the playability of the guitar in a huge way. I actually had a Les Paul in recently, and the guy really preferred higher action. So you'd think that wouldn't be so much of a big deal, but the whole guitar just felt so clunky. It just felt awkward, like I said before. And this is just all down to the nut. Once I got that nut cut right, the whole guitar, even though the action was high, it felt just smoother and more cohesive to play. So such a big one. really cut your nut. Many of the measurements you're going to be making are affected by that string height at the nut. So you are never going to get a good setup if that nut isn't going to be cut right. Everything from that point on is just going to be compensating for that high nut. I've seen some videos where people suggest putting a capo on the first fret to sort of take the nut out of the equation while you're doing a setup. Now, my problem with this is if that's not how you normally play guitar with a capo on that first fret, then I would not be setting up my guitar in that way. So if you don't play with a capo on the first fret, don't put one on the first fret when you're doing a setup. Always set your guitar up in the same state that you're going to be playing it. There's obviously a lot more things that make a great setup, and nowadays, after working on thousands of guitars over the last 25 years, it's something I don't think about as much as I just instinctively know what to do. Without having great fretwork and a nicely cut nut, your guitar's never going to reach its setup potential. You're always going to be compensating for those other issues. If you're having problems with your guitar, check these things out. Go online and see if you can learn how to do it yourself, or even get it into a luthier that specifically knows how to fret level and cut a nut. You'll often find that a lot of music stores won't have techs there that actually know how to do these things. They could probably do all the basics really well, but not cutting a nut or fret leveling. So make sure you subscribe if you like this video, and check the links in the description. I've got that link there to my new Fourth Wall site, which I've just got up and running. I'm really stoked about it, and we'll catch you in the next video.